My daughter-in-law forged my dead husband's will. $2 million. That's what she tried to steal from me. But here's the thing. I knew about it for 3 months before I said anything. And what I did with those 3 months? Yeah, she's gonna be dealing with the consequences for a long time. See, my lawyer told me something very interesting when I showed him what I found. He said, "Mrs. Chen, let her keep going. The deeper the hole, the harder the fall." So that's exactly what I did. Okay, so let me back up a little because you need to understand how this woman operated. This wasn't just about the will. This was about 15 years of calculated manipulation. And I didn't see it until it was almost too late. My name is Diana. I'm 58. I live in Portland, Oregon. My husband Robert died 8 months ago. Heart attack. He was 62. We'd been together since college. 34 years of marriage. One son, Marcus, who's 32 now. Robert was a software engineer back when that actually meant something. Started at Microsoft in the 1990s, got some stock options, made some smart investments. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Very comfortable. The house is paid off. We've got, had about $2 million in various accounts and investments. Robert's pension, life insurance. The plan was simple. Live off the investments, travel, spoil our future grandkids, and eventually Marcus gets everything when we're both gone. Simple, right? Yeah, that's what I thought too. Enter Amber. Marcus met her 5 years ago. She was a marketing consultant, which as far as I could tell meant she made Instagram posts for small businesses and called it a strategy. 27 when they met. Blonde, fit, the kind of pretty where you know she knows exactly how pretty she is. And look, I'm not gonna lie, my first impression wasn't great, but I'm also not one of those monster-in-laws who hates every woman her son dates. I tried. I really tried. They got married after dating for 18 months. Small wedding. Amber wanted it at this trendy industrial venue in the Pearl District. Robert and I paid for most of it because Marcus was still paying off his student loans. The wedding was fine. A little too Instagram aesthetic for my taste. Everything was beige and had pampas grass. But whatever, it's their day, right? Here's the thing though, and I didn't realize this was a red flag at the time. Amber made a joke during her reception speech. She said, "I finally found a man with a good family. And good family assets." Everyone laughed. Even Robert laughed. I didn't. The first couple years of their marriage were okay. Marcus seemed happy. Amber was fine. She never really warmed up to me, but I figured, some people just aren't the warm, fuzzy type. But there were little things. Like, she'd always make comments about our house. "Wow, this neighborhood must be worth a fortune now. I can't believe how much equity you guys have built up." Or about Robert's job. "When does Robert's pension kick in? Is it a good one?" At the time, I thought she was just making conversation, being interested in her new family. Robert actually liked her. He thought she was ambitious and smart about money. I remember one time, maybe year 2 of their marriage, we're all having dinner at our place. Amber asks Robert about his estate planning. She goes, "Do you guys have everything set up? Like trusts and stuff?" Robert goes, Yeah, we've got a will, everything's in order." Amber goes, "Oh, good, because you guys have worked so hard for everything. It would be terrible if something happened and it all got complicated." I'm sitting there thinking, who asks that at Sunday dinner? But Robert's nodding along like she's making total sense. And then she says, and I remember this exactly, "You know what you should do? You should make Marcus the executor. That way, if something happens, he can handle everything right away without waiting for lawyers and courts and all that." Robert actually considered it. He goes, "That's not a bad idea." I said, "We already have an executor. My brother Steve." Amber goes, "Oh, but Steve lives in Arizona. Wouldn't it be easier to have someone local?" And I'm sitting there thinking, why does she care so much? But I let it go. I didn't want to be that mother-in-law. Year 3 of their marriage, things started getting weirder. Amber suddenly became super interested in family history. She wanted copies of all our important documents in case anything happened. She convinced Marcus they should have copies of our birth certificates, social security cards, insurance policies. Just to be safe. Robert thought it was sweet. "She's just trying to be helpful, Diana." I thought it was invasive as hell. Then there was the incident with Robert's medication. Robert had high blood pressure. He took medication for it every day, had been for 10 years. One day, Amber's at our house, and she sees his pills on the counter. She picks up the bottle, reads it, and goes, "My friend's dad had the same medication. He died. Just like that. He died." Robert goes, "Well, lots of people take this medication. Amber shrugs. I'm just saying. You should probably get regular checkups. These heart things can be hereditary. Marcus should probably get checked too. The way she said hereditary, like she was already planning for it. I pulled Marcus aside later that night, and I said, "Your wife is acting weird about your dad's health." Marcus laughed. He actually laughed at me. "Mom, she's a health nut. She's like this with everyone." But here's the thing that really bothered me. 2 weeks after that conversation, Amber asked Robert about his life insurance. She was over for dinner again, and she just casually goes, "Robert, do you have good life insurance? Like, enough to take care of Diana if something happened?" Robert goes, "Yeah, we've got a good policy." Amber nods. "That's good. Diana wouldn't want to be a burden on Marcus and me if something happened to you." I almost threw my wine at her. "A burden?" But Robert pats her hand and goes, "That's thoughtful of you to think about." I'm sitting there like, am I crazy? Is this normal daughter-in-law behavior? Look, I know how this sounds. I know I sound like a paranoid mother-in-law who's making something out of nothing. Trust me, I questioned myself constantly. Maybe she was just awkward. Maybe she was just trying to be involved. Maybe I was the problem. I even went to therapy about it. My therapist said, sometimes we have to accept that not everyone will have the relationship with us that we want. So I backed off. I tried to give Amber space. I tried to be less suspicious. And that's when Robert died, May 15th. That's the day my husband collapsed in our kitchen while making coffee. I was upstairs. I heard the crash. By the time I got down there, he wasn't breathing. The paramedics came. They tried. He was dead before we even got to the hospital. Massive heart attack. The doctor said it was quick, said he probably didn't feel anything. That's supposed to make you feel better, right? That they didn't suffer? It doesn't. The funeral was a blur. I don't remember most of it. Marcus held me up through most of the service. Amber stood next to him. Perfect posture, perfect black dress, perfect amount of tears at the right moments. At the reception afterward, she hugged me. First time she'd ever really hugged me. She whispered in my ear, "We'll take care of everything. You don't need to worry about anything." At the time, I thought she was being supportive. Now I know what she meant was, I'm about to take everything. 2 weeks after the funeral, Marcus called me. He goes, "Mom, we need to talk about Dad's will." I'm like, "Okay, what about it?" He goes, "Did you know Dad changed it recently?" I said, "What?" "No, we haven't updated our wills in like 5 years." Long pause. Marcus goes, "Mom, are you sitting down?" And that's when my stomach dropped. He goes, "There's a new will. It's dated from 3 months ago. Dad left everything to you, but he made me the executor. And there's a trust set up that gives Amber and me control over the estate if you become unable to manage your affairs." I'm like, what the hell does that even mean? Marcus goes, "It means if you get sick, or if you're deemed incapable of making financial decisions, Amber and I take over everything." I said, "Your father would never set up something like that without talking to me." Silence on the other end. Then I hear Amber's voice in the background. She's saying something to Marcus. He comes back and goes, "Mom, Amber thinks we should have a family meeting to go over everything." Amber thinks? Marcus goes, "She's just trying to help, Mom." Yeah, help herself. But here's the thing. I questioned myself. What if Robert did change the will and didn't tell me? We'd been married 34 years. He'd never hidden anything from me before. But people do weird things when they're thinking about mortality. Maybe he wanted to make sure Marcus and I were taken care of. Maybe he wanted to protect his son. And the part about the trust, maybe he was worried about me. He'd watched his own mother decline mentally. Maybe he was trying to prevent that from being a problem. I wanted to believe it was real. God, I wanted to believe my husband wouldn't leave this earth without telling me about something this important. So, I agreed to the family meeting. We met at Marcus and Amber's condo, downtown Portland, one of those new buildings with floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive, minimal furniture. Amber had printed out copies of the will. Very organized, very professional. She laid them out on their dining table like she was presenting a business proposal. She goes, "Okay, so let's walk through this." And she starts going through it, point by point, everything to me, Marcus as executor. The trust clause about if I'm unable to manage things. But then she gets to this part I hadn't heard before. She goes, "And there's this clause here about the house." I'm like, "What clause?" She points to this paragraph. It says that if you decide you can't maintain the house anymore, or if you need to move to assisted living, the house automatically goes to Marcus and me. Not through probate, not through sale, just transfers. I said, "Let me see that." I grabbed the paper. Read it. She was right. It was right there in black and white. I looked at Marcus. Did you know about this? He looked uncomfortable. Mom, I think Dad was just trying to make sure the house stayed in the family. Amber nods, all sympathetic. It makes sense. This house is Marcus's childhood home. Of course, Robert would want him to have it eventually. I said, eventually, not immediately. Amber goes, of course not. But if something happened where you couldn't live there anymore, nothing's going to happen. She gives me this look, this pitying look. She goes, Diana, you're 58. Robert just died suddenly. These things happen. He was just being prepared. And that's when I knew. I don't know how I knew. I just knew. Something about the way she said it. The way she'd clearly rehearsed this whole presentation. This wasn't Robert being prepared. This was Amber being greedy. I left their condo and went straight home. Didn't even say goodbye properly. Just grabbed my purse and walked out. Marcus called me 3 times that night. I didn't answer. The next morning I called our estate attorney, David Morrison. He'd handled Robert's and my wills 5 years ago. I said, David, I need you to pull Robert's will, the one you have on file. He goes, of course, give me 1 second. I hear typing. He goes, okay, I've got it here. Last updated April 2019. Pretty standard. Everything to you, you're the executor, and upon your death, everything goes to Marcus. I said, does it say anything about Marcus being executor, or a trust, or anything about the house going to Marcus if I can't maintain it? Long pause. No, nothing like that. Why? I said. Because apparently there's a new will, from 3 months ago, and it says all of those things. Another pause. Longer this time. David goes, Diana, did Robert work with another attorney? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out. David goes, do you have a copy of this new will? Amber gave me a copy. He goes, can you bring it to my office? Today, if possible. I was there in 20 minutes. Okay, so here's where it gets interesting. David took one look at the will Amber gave me and immediately started making notes. He didn't say anything at first, just kept flipping pages, writing things down, comparing it to the old will. Finally, he looks up and goes, Diana, I need to ask you something very directly. Did Robert have early onset dementia? Any signs of cognitive decline? Anything like that? I said, no. Why? He taps the will. Because this signature doesn't look right. David pulls out the old will, shows me Robert's signature from 2019. Then he puts the new will next to it. He goes, look at this. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The signature on the new will is close. It's really close. But it's not exact. Robert always had this specific way he signed his name. The R in Robert had this little flourish, and the T at the end of Robert connected to the C in Chen. The signature on the new will had the flourish. It had the connection. But they weren't quite right. The flourish was too big. The connection was too sharp. David goes, this looks like someone traced the signature, or practiced copying it. I'm staring at this will, and suddenly everything makes sense. All of Amber's questions about estate planning, her interest in our documents, her wanting copies of everything. She'd been planning this. I said, what do we do? David goes, well, first thing, we need to determine if this will was ever actually filed, or if Robert ever actually signed any documents with another attorney. Can you check your credit card statements? Bank records? See if there's any payments to another law firm? I pulled out my phone, right there. Logged into our joint account. Scrolled back 3 months. Nothing. No payments to any law firm. No large withdrawals. Nothing. David nods. Okay, so either he paid in cash, which would be unusual for an estate attorney, or he never hired an attorney at all, David goes. Exactly. I said, so what now? And here's where David said something that changed everything. He goes, Diana, if someone forged your husband's will, that's fraud. That's a crime. But to prove it's a crime, we need to catch them in the act of using it. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, if we confront them now, they'll just say it was a misunderstanding. They'll destroy any evidence. But if we let them move forward with this fake will, if we let them actually try to file it with the probate court, then we have them. You want me to let her commit the crime? David smiles. I want you to let her dig her own grave. I sat in David's office for probably 20 minutes just processing. My daughter-in-law had forged my dead husband's will. She was trying to steal my house, my money, my life, and my son who I raised, who I loved more than anything, was either in on it or too blind to see what his wife was doing. I started crying, not pretty crying, ugly, can't breathe, mascara everywhere, crying. David got me tissues, waited. When I could finally talk, I said, "What if Marcus knows? What if he's helping her?" David said, "We won't know until we see how he reacts. But Diana, you need to be prepared for that possibility." That almost broke me more than the forgery. The idea that my son would do this to me. But David said something else that stuck with me. He goes, "Or he's a victim here too. She might have told him this is legitimate. He might have no idea what she's done." I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that, so I dried my tears, fixed my makeup in David's bathroom, and made a decision. I was going to play along, and I was going to destroy her. If you're still with me at this point, it's about to get so much worse before it gets better. Because what I discovered over the next 3 months, the lengths this woman went to, it's honestly insane. But here's the thing that kept me going. Every time she lied, every time she manipulated, every time she pushed for something, she was building my case. David called it giving her enough rope to hang herself. I called it torture, but I did it. I called Marcus the next day. I said, "I'm sorry I left so abruptly yesterday. This is all just really overwhelming." He goes, "I know, Mom. It's a lot." I said, "I think I need some time to process everything. But I want you to know I'm okay with you being executor. Your dad chose you for a reason." I could hear the relief in his voice. "Really? Really? You're his son. It makes sense." Amber gets on the phone. "Diana, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this." Reasonable, as if I had a choice. She goes, "We should get the will filed with probate court soon, just to make everything official." I said, "Whatever you think is best. I trust you guys." And oh man, I could hear her smile through the phone. She goes, "Great. I'll handle all the paperwork. You don't need to worry about a thing." After I hung up, I texted David, "She's filing it." He texted back, "Perfect. Don't sign anything without me seeing it first." Over the next few weeks, I started going through everything. Every document, every file, every piece of paper Robert and I had. And I found things. In Robert's office, in the back of a file cabinet, I found a folder labeled Estate Planning 2024. Inside were copies of articles about will planning, a list of estate attorneys in Portland, and, this is the part that made me sick, a practice sheet with Robert's signature. Someone had traced Robert's signature over and over on this sheet. Practicing. It wasn't in Robert's handwriting. The practice signatures were in blue pen. Robert only ever used black. I took photos of everything, sent them to David. I also found something else. In our joint email account, there were 3 emails from something called Pacific Northwest Estate Services. They were sent to Robert's email in February, a month before he died. The emails were asking about setting up a will appointment. Robert had never responded to them, but someone had replied from a different email address, robertchen.estateedgemail.com. That wasn't Robert's email. Robert's email was robert.chen42@gmail.com, the one he'd had since the 1990s. Someone had created a fake email address in Robert's name. I clicked on the emails. They were coordinating appointment times, discussing estate planning, talking about trusts and beneficiaries, and every email was signed, "Thanks, Robert." But it wasn't Robert. I knew Robert's writing style. This wasn't him. The language was too formal. The sentences were too short. Robert always wrote long, rambling emails with tons of em-dashes and parenthetical asides. These emails were brief and professional. This was Amber. I called David from my car. I was parked outside a Starbucks, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold the phone. I said, "She created a fake email address. She posed as Robert. She hired an attorney, or someone she's calling an attorney, and she created this entire fake paper trail." David goes, "Okay, send me everything you found." I'm taking photos of documents, forwarding emails, and then I see it. One more email, from June, 2 months ago, a month after Robert died. The subject line, "Final payment for will preparation services." I opened it. It was an invoice from Pacific Northwest Estate Services for $4,500 for comprehensive estate planning, will preparation, and trust documentation, and it was sent to that fake Robert email address. But the payment was processed through Amber's Venmo. I had her. I had actual proof she paid someone to create a fake will. But that's not even the craziest part. The craziest part was when I did a Google search for Pacific Northwest Estate Services. It didn't exist. No website, no business listing, no address, no phone number. The only trace of it was a LinkedIn profile created in January, right when those first emails started. And the photo on the LinkedIn profile? I reverse image searched it. Stock photo. From a free stock photo website, Amber didn't just forge the will. She created an entire fake law firm. She created fake correspondence. She created a fake attorney. She paid herself $4,500 through this fake business. And then she tried to pass this all off as legitimate. David hired a forensic document examiner. This woman, Jennifer, who examines questioned documents for court cases. She looked at everything: the signatures, the dates, the paper, the ink. 2 weeks later, we met at David's office. Jennifer had a whole presentation prepared. She showed us microscopic photos of the signature, explained how you can tell when someone traces versus when someone signs naturally. She showed us ink analysis. The ink on the new will was from a common Bic ballpoint pen. Robert only ever used fountain pens. He was particular about it. She showed us paper analysis. The new will was printed on standard 20LB copy paper. The real will from 2019 was on 24LB premium legal paper with a watermark. And then she dropped the biggest bomb. She goes, "This document was not notarized by a real notary." I'm like, "What?" She points to the notary seal on the will. This seal belongs to a notary named Janet Wheeler. Janet Wheeler's license expired in 2018, and I contacted her. She has no record of ever notarizing anything for Robert Chen. The notary seal was fake too. David goes, "So what we have is forged signature, fake attorney, fake law firm, fake notary seal, and a paper trail of Amber paying herself through this fake business." Jennifer nods. "That's exactly what you have, and it's all provable in court." I said, "So what now?" David smiles. Now we let her file it with the probate court, and then we bury her." The plan was simple. Let Amber file the fake will with probate court. Wait for her to start acting as executor. Wait for her to start making moves on my assets. Document everything. And then drop the hammer. But there was something else I wanted to do. I wanted to tell Marcus. David advised against it. He said Marcus might tip off Amber. But I needed to know. I needed to know if my son was in on this. So I invited Marcus to lunch. Just the two of us. I told him Amber couldn't come. I needed mother-son time. We met at this little Vietnamese place in southeast Portland. Place we'd been going to since he was a kid. I waited until after we ordered. Then I said, "Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." He goes, "Okay." I said, "Did your father ever talk to you about changing his will?" Marcus looked confused. "No, why would he? Did Amber ever talk to you about it? Before Dad died?" He's quiet for a second. Then he goes, "She mentioned a few times that Dad should update his will, make sure everything was organized. But that's it." I said, "Did you ever see your dad sign any legal documents? Meet with any attorneys you didn't recognize?" "Mom, what's this about?" I made a decision in that moment. I said, "Marcus, I'm going to tell you something, and you need to listen to the whole thing before you react." And I told him everything. The fake signature, the fake law firm, the fake notary, the evidence, all of it. I watched my son's face go through about 15 different emotions in 5 minutes. Denial, confusion, anger, disbelief, horror. When I finished, he just sat there. Finally, he goes, "Are you sure?" I pulled out my phone, showed him the photos of the practice signatures, the emails from the fake law firm, the LinkedIn profile with the stock photo. He stared at it all. Then he said something that broke my heart and gave me hope at the same time. He goes, "I didn't know. I swear to God, Mom, I didn't know." And I believed him. 3 days after my lunch with Marcus, Amber filed the fake will with Multnomah County Probate Court. David got the notification immediately. He'd been monitoring the court filings. He called me. "She did it. The will's been filed." 2 weeks later, Amber sent me a letter, official letterhead and everything. Pacific Northwest Estate Services, at the top, the fake law firm. The letter informed me that as executor of Robert's estate, she was taking inventory of assets and beginning the process of estate administration. It included a list of documents she needed from me: deeds to the house, bank account statements, investment account information, life insurance policies, social security information, passwords to all online accounts. At the bottom, there was a line for my signature, authorizing her to access everything. I took a photo of it. Then I signed it. and I sent it back to her. David nearly had a heart attack when I told him. But I said, let her think she won. Let her think I'm cooperating. The more confident she gets, the sloppier she'll be. Over the next 6 weeks, Amber went full throttle. She contacted my bank, saying she was the executor and needed access to accounts. She called my financial advisor, trying to get him to move assets into accounts she controlled. She even called my insurance company, asking about cashing out my life insurance policy. Every single time, David had already contacted these people, told them what was happening, told them to act cooperative but not actually give her access to anything. We were building a case. Meanwhile, Amber was getting more aggressive. She started sending me these passive-aggressive texts. Hey Diana, just reminding you we need those account passwords soon. Diana, the bank is being difficult. Can you call them and tell them I have authorization? The probate process would go much faster if you'd cooperate more. I responded to every single one, sweet as pie. Of course, I'll call the bank tomorrow. Sorry, I'm still figuring out all of Robert's passwords. Thanks for being so patient with me during this difficult time. Marcus told me she was getting stressed. He said she kept complaining that everything was taking too long. She'd tell him, your mom is making this so complicated. Your dad wanted this to be simple. What she didn't know was that every single communication she sent me, every single call she made to financial institutions, every single action she took as executor, it was all being documented. David was building a case that would be absolutely airtight. August 15th, 3 months after Robert's death, 2 months after Amber filed the fake will, David filed a motion with the probate court. Objection to petition for probate and motion to invalidate fraudulent will. Attached to the motion was a 47-page brief detailing every piece of evidence we had. Forensic document analysis, the fake law firm, the fake notary, the practice signature sheets, the email correspondence from the fake attorney, the Venmo payment, the forged documents, every communication where Amber tried to access my assets, recorded phone calls. Oregon is a one-party consent state. David had advised me to record everything. We also filed a criminal complaint with the Portland Police for forgery, fraud, identity theft, attempted theft, and just for fun, David filed a civil suit against Amber personally for intentional infliction of emotional distress, fraud, conversion, unjust enrichment. The total amount we sued for? $5 million. More than twice what she tried to steal. The best part? We served her with all of these papers at Marcus and Amber's condo. I wasn't there. Marcus told me about it later. He said 2 police officers showed up with a process server. Amber answered the door in her yoga clothes. The officer said, "Are you Amber Chen?" She goes, "Yes." "You're being served with a civil complaint and a criminal investigation notice." The process server handed her the papers. Marcus said Amber's face went white. She started reading. Her hands were shaking. Then she looked up and goes, "This is a mistake. This is all a mistake." The officer goes, "You'll need to respond to the civil complaint within 30 days. Someone from the district attorney's office will be in contact about the criminal complaint." After they left, Amber apparently lost it. Marcus said she was screaming, "Your mother is insane. This is all a misunderstanding. I was just trying to help." Marcus goes, "Did you forge Dad's will?" Amber goes, "No, of course not. This is, your mom hired some fancy lawyer who's making things up." Marcus pulls out his phone, shows her the photos I'd shown him, the practice signatures, the emails. He goes, "Did you create a fake law firm?" Silence. He goes, "Did you pay yourself $4,500 through a fake business?" More silence. And Marcus said this was the wildest part. Amber tried to flip it. She goes, "Your dad asked me to do this. He wanted to make sure you were taken care of. He wanted to protect you from your mother." Marcus goes, "My dad asked you to commit fraud?" Amber starts crying. "You don't understand. Your mom is going to waste all your inheritance. She's going to give it all away to charity or something. Your dad wanted you to have it." Marcus said, "Get out." She goes, "What?" He goes, "Get out of my house. We're done." And that was it. The criminal case took about 8 months to wind through the system. Amber initially tried to fight it. She hired a lawyer who tried to argue it was all a misunderstanding. That lasted about 2 weeks until the prosecutor showed them the evidence. Then Amber's lawyer told her she had 2 choices: plead guilty to reduced charges or go to trial and probably end up in prison for 5-10 years. She took the plea deal. She pled guilty to 1 count of forgery and 1 count of fraud. She got 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and she had to pay restitution of $75,000 to cover my legal fees and the cost of the forensic investigation. She also got a permanent record, felony conviction, no more marketing consultant career. Most companies won't hire convicted felons. The civil case, that one was even more satisfying. Amber's lawyer tried to get it dismissed. The judge laughed at them. The judge literally said, "Counsel, your client forged a will and tried to steal a house. We're not dismissing this. We went to court. It took 2 days. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. They found in my favor on every single count, and they awarded me $2.3 million in damages. Now, here's the thing. Amber doesn't have $2.3 million. She barely has $2,300, but the judgment follows her forever. If she ever makes any money, if she ever inherits anything, if she ever owns anything of value, I can take it. She'll be paying this off for the rest of her life. Oh, and the house thing? She had been telling Marcus that once they got the house, they were going to sell it and use the money to buy a bigger place for when we start our family. Yeah, she was literally planning to make me homeless so she could upgrade her condo. Marcus filed for divorce 6 months ago. It was final last month. He lost about $30,000 in the divorce, his half of their savings, and some furniture. But he told me, best $30,000 I ever spent. So here we are. It's been almost 2 years since Robert died. I still miss him every single day. I still reach for the phone to call him when something funny happens. But I'm okay. Better than okay, actually. The house is still mine. The money is still mine. And most importantly, my relationship with Marcus is better than it's been in years. He apologized about 1,000 times for not seeing what Amber was doing. I told him, "You loved her. You wanted to see the best in her. That's not a character flaw. That's what good people do. We have dinner every Sunday now. Just the two of us. He's dating someone new. Sarah. She's a middle school teacher. She's wonderful. And importantly, she's never once asked about my estate planning. As for Amber, I don't know what she's doing. I don't care. I heard through the grapevine that she moved back to California to live with her parents. She's working at a Target. Part of me feels bad for her. Not because she didn't deserve what happened. She absolutely did. But because she destroyed her entire life over greed. She had a good life, a husband who loved her, a good family, financial security, and she threw it all away because she wanted more. She couldn't wait. She couldn't be patient. She couldn't just be grateful for what she had. And now she has nothing. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I hadn't gone to David. If I'd just accepted the fake will as real, she would have gotten away with it. She would have slowly taken everything from me, and I would have never known. But I did know, and I did something about it. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you some lesson about trusting your gut or whatever, but I will say this. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If someone is too interested in your money, they're interested in your money, not you. And if someone tries to take advantage of you when you're grieving, when you're vulnerable, when you're at your absolute lowest, don't just get mad, get evidence, and then destroy them. Thanks for sticking with me through this whole insane story. If you've got a story like this, family drama, revenge, whatever, drop it in the comments. I read all of them. And if you know someone dealing with estate stuff after losing someone, tell them to get a good lawyer. Seriously, it might save their life.